All right. Melissa Ciciola is a partner relationships leader at Promethe Consultants based in Canada. Her why is to connect people to possibility so that we build a more courageous world and lay the foundations of growth and innovation. She imagines a world where the call center is the heart of an organization, its front line, and its employees live engaged and empowered lives as they build connections with their clients so that they may be inspired to do the same. Melissa, welcome, and thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here. When I was in preschool, I insisted on giving a speech to my teacher at the end of year celebration to thank her for all that she did for us. At 4 years old, I was comfortable expressing how I felt and connected with the ability to recognize others. It stands out to me that moment. I was the kid who made friends with everyone and whose heart hurt when someone was left out. I remember making friends with one of the students in our class who was autistic, something that was so unknown back in the 80s. And he was being bullied. I was the one who spoke up about it and helped create a space where everyone felt understood in the class. When the girls in class wanted to organize a cheerleading squad, they kept circling around the idea that our teachers would say no. I was convinced that if we just had the right approach, we could find a way to make it work. This earned me the right to be nominated to bring it up with our teachers. It ended up being approved. These situations made me realize that anything is possible. I've always felt that I didn't see the world quite like others. Finding a way forward, charting the path, for me, it's always seemed simple. And I couldn't always understand when others around me struggled with it. But I was aware that it existed, that there was that difference. Other things, though, like memorizing my math tables, athletic events, or understanding the logic of French verbs, no, those weren't me. I became conscious of the fact at a very young age that each person had certain things about them that makes them special and unique. For me, that was connecting with people, talking, sharing ideas or stories, thinking outside the box, making space for others to feel accepted and understood and recognized. I saw patterns and perspectives that others didn't see right off the bat. And I was able to spot the blind spots in a situation. And I love to help untangle things, all like pieces of a puzzle. I used my voice. I wasn't shy to. I always spoke up. Nothing ever seemed difficult or impossible because I knew that if I didn't know, someone else around me would, because each of us had talents and together we were incredible. I was comfortable navigating the world this way, and I was joyful and outgoing. That was until I lived through a childhood trauma of being abused. I was young, and it was someone I trusted, someone who used that trust to manipulate the situation. And it went on for months, only stopped when I spoke up about it, when I found that voice again. After that, I completely closed up, and I dealt with the trauma by closing in on myself, avoiding any situation that would bring attention to me. Occasionally, you could still catch a glimpse of that young girl. You can't really hide who you are forever. But for all intents and purposes, I focused on not letting people too close, building areas for me to feel safe, and just trying to blend into the crowd. I still had lots of friends, but I was so selective of who I would let get close enough, and I never spoke up to others about what happened to me. It was so lonely, and that fear was so present. I would grow up, get help to deal with the worst of the memories, go into adulthood and have three beautiful children and a job that I enjoyed. I found a group of people that I worked with that became close, and I was happy to contribute. And I spent many years there. It was comfortable. I was able to be more myself than I had been in a long time. but I was still keeping myself small, still doing only just enough to connect to that little bubble of joy and purpose, that creativity that was inside of me, just enough to stay in the background and always away from what really spoke to me. Have you ever had the chance to meet somebody who changed the course of your life? I did. I had a mentor who saw through that surface and saw that I was hiding inside, pushed me out of that comfort zone. One day he asked me if I had ever considered a leadership role. No, too much attention, too many chances of being hurt. But a little voice inside also chimed in. What about all the people that I could help? Most of the leaders around me didn't spark that light in me. I wasn't even sure I wanted a job like that. Why would anyone want to manage other people? He invited me to think on it, that he believed in me and was willing to help me, and I felt safe and encouraged. All of a sudden, a world of possibilities opened up in front of me again. The fear of all those years ago was still present, though. There I was, confronted with the idea of accepting a leadership role that I didn't feel equipped for. So I fell into one of my routines to protect myself, and I started researching everything I could to be able to blend into this new role. It was then that I stumbled on a video of Simon Sinek. You may have heard of him a few times this weekend. I understood that I wanted to embody as a leader. I was curious about my why, but I put it on the list of things I'll get to one day. And I realized more and more the disconnect of what I saw around me. Most of what I saw was managers, but a few had this different spark about them. They were leaders. And his talks gave me the words to articulate what I thought being a leader could be. I sought out advice from those leaders around me, and I learned online. I lay out my own action plan to figure out the pieces I needed to grow into this new role. Step one was to learn more about myself. And as I began that work, I realized that I don't think I'll ever be finished. It was an awakening for me. I connected to this piece inside that was laying quiet for so long. There are moments I find I can look back on my life and that signify a before and an after. There was a before I was a leader, and there was an after. Just like there was a before the abuse and an after. All of a sudden, I found this courage to tap back into that source of joy inside of me, to help others find solutions through coaching and developing, to be there and speak up for things that I saw needed to change, to help put ideas into action, to watch others find their spark and then grow and shine. It brought purpose and connection and inspiration back into my life, and I started to recognize who I was again. I moved up in my career. I kept growing and I kept learning more and more about myself. I learned to embrace the great and the not so great. I put words to my strengths. I was able to articulate my abilities, and I kept researching and seeking out opportunities to be coached, pushing that comfort zone further and further out. And I found the works of Brené Brown, and they resonated with me. The courage to lead and embrace my vulnerabilities helped me balance that uncomfortable place that I kept myself in with this new and exciting environment where I could be myself. I felt safe to be myself. Understanding those differences I knew about helped me contribute in ways that I wasn't able to before. And better yet, it gave me even more words to recognize others' differences. And I sought out their help in areas I knew they were stronger than me, always in service to others, always looking to challenge the status quo and help others embrace their talents. I moved into a new role. I had an amazing leader who kept pushing me outside that comfort zone, who challenged me and propelled my growth further than I thought was possible. I would wake up excited to contribute every single day. It was like I opened a box and unlocked that Melissa of before, that young, brave girl, but combined with all the knowledge and experience that I had acquired over the years. And I would not go back inside that box. It vibrated in every part of my being. The work I was doing, the teams I was helping, it was like being in flow all of the time until things changed. Psychological harassment. As a director, I had a pretty good idea of what it was. It's part of the regular training you get when you start to be responsible for others. I mean, I was even certified in mental health well-being, and yet I didn't recognize it at first. I lived through a situation that went on for months. Exhaustion, emotions all over the place, gaslighting, manipulation, being blamed for every little thing, even who I was. It wasn't until the people around me spoke up. They saw what was happening. They reflected it back to me, what I was living, and I was able to start to realize how far things were going. I was a shadow of myself, crying every single day. I kept telling myself, it'll get better. I asked for help, but nothing changed. And I warred with myself between the need to keep pushing through and the need to save myself. I was told it's just a bad sense of humor, bad taste, politics. That is not acceptable. My body was tired, and so I said, oh, I'm going to book a vacation by myself. I'll refresh, I'll come back, and I'll be able to find a way through it. By myself, I walked the streets of London and I sat in silence, completely removed from my day-to-day, halfway around the world. And I decided that I couldn't keep doing this. I dug deep down and I used my voice. It finally culminated when I could not imagine going on anymore. I couldn't imagine one more day of it. The possible was gone. So I took myself out of the situation. I sought professional help. I needed someone to tell me that it wasn't all in my head. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression. I burned out. I struggled with belonging and connection, self-worth, all as a result of it. I couldn't read, cook, sleep. My memory that I had always prided myself on was horrible. I was afraid of people, me, my source of joy. Spending time with my kids, even that exhausted me. I would burst into tears while out for a walk or having a coffee. The sentence, "How are you?" would send me into waves of grief. And everyone told me that it was normal after what I had lived. I was surrounded by amazing people, though. They formed a team to help me. Doctors, friends, family. They knew that the Melissa of the last few years was still inside, and they weren't going to let me forget her. My doctor told me that my vacation probably saved my life. The distance from the situation allowed me to see the disconnect, what was normal and what wasn't. On the path to recovery, my doctor suggested watching videos as a way of building up my concentration. And I found myself once again back with Simon and Brene, and they connected me back to that spark of joy in a way that felt safe. Before the burnout and then after. I fought my way back to myself. I had to learn how to do things all over again, to grow my concentration, my ability to connect with people, and to speak up with ideas. Maybe I had to think, was this because I was afraid to draw too much attention? Could it happen again? Was it being myself that drew these situations to me? It's incredible what our mind will do and tell us to try to protect us. It fueled that self-doubt and lack of confidence. And I found I wrestled a long time with that worry. At some point in my recovery, I realized I had to make some decisions. Do I close myself up to fit in, protect myself, feel safe? I could sit and stay closed up, maybe safer, but I would never be able to embrace who I was meant to be. Or I could choose not to. I decided that the risk of not being who I really was far greater a loss than anything I had been through so far. I fought for me, and I began to heal. I took control of the situation. I used my voice for myself. The moment I decided I was no longer a victim, I had decided that I was worthy of getting better. When the pandemic started, I saw that Simon was launching classes to discover your why, and I didn't hesitate. I signed up and began the prep work for the class. This was going to be a piece of my healing. I wanted to find the words to explain what I've always felt inside. I did Jumpstart, Refine, Office Hours, and then Live Your Why. It unlocked another door in me. It gave me the words to define my purpose, words I wasn't going to turn my back on. It helped me heal. To connect people to possibility so that we build a more courageous world and lay the foundations of growth and innovation. This is what I was born for. I wasn't going to apologize anymore for who I was. The words gave me back my confidence and my power. The journey to discovering them gave me perspectives and inspiration, a new community. I started a new career path, one that was right in line with my why and helping people every day see possibilities where they once saw roadblocks. I learned to embrace the vulnerability within me and be courageous. More importantly, I learned to build up my sense of safety and worthiness from within myself, a place to stand the test of time and weather the storms. Before my why and an after. Roadblocks in life happen. What you do with them is what makes the difference between going with the flow and embracing who you are. You do have a choice, and choosing to do nothing is your choice. So what stops you from choosing you? Fear. It's one of the main reasons I found. We're all afraid of something. We have this need to fit in, but we also have this need for connection, acceptance, and love. Now, we all haven't lived situations as extreme as mine, thankfully. We each have our own struggles, though, our own doubts, traumas, and also our own paths. How could I end up there was a question I asked myself over and over. Take a few seconds and think for a minute on your own lives. Do you have one that stands out? A moment you'd like to share in the chat?
What type of moment are you looking for, Melissa?
A moment where you feel like you're fitting in, where you feel like you have that need to connect. Yeah, this moment, oh, international, yeah. When you first moved to the US, amazing. Yeah. While I was on this journey, I had to face some hard truths, learn some important lessons. The more I spoke about it with others, the more I began to realize that everyone lives some version of these things in their own way. Some more traumatic than my own and some less. I was brought back to my videos and reading of Brene Brown books. We all have a need for connection, belonging, acceptance, love. That is a common truth across the world. We are hardwired for it. Brene defines connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from that relationship. It resonates with me. But something happens though. At some point between childhood and adulthood, somewhere along the line, we grow this belief that we think we have to have connection, we need to conform or hide our true selves, that this will bring us acceptance and love. That hiding of who we really are, putting a nice little gloss over our ideas, our personalities, that this will protect us from the risk that the other person might not like what's underneath. Not saying what we really think, not saying how we feel when something happens, pretending to be okay. This culture of mentality of just pushing through. We internalize and protect ourselves in the hope that we will all just fit in, that we'll be accepted, that they won't see the real us or the pieces of us we aren't the biggest fans of, and risk the possibility of rejection. You know what I'm talking about, right? How we get in our own way. We do. So how can you really be yourself if you're always hiding pieces that you're afraid others might find? Why do we struggle to conform? We each have our own reasons. Mine was this need to connect to others, to not feel alone, to live my purpose and feel safe. What's yours? You want to take a few seconds and share it with me in the chat? What are you hiding? Why are you hiding? What is that piece that you're afraid others might find? Okay. Need to control, found wanting in life and work, brokenness, not producing enough. Yeah, it's always there, all of these things. Smart enough. We each have our own, all of us. Every single person has it. So why was I hiding my true self all those years? I wanted to connect. Ironically, it was this realization that in every single moment that I had ever felt like I was truly connecting with somebody, it's when I've been open and honest and my authentic self. So all those efforts to hide it and gloss over, it was very superficial. You weren't building, well, I wasn't building real connection. It opened my eyes. In our efforts to connect, we've been creating this version of ourselves that we want others to see. That's where we go wrong. Too many times I've seen people put on this show. There's the me at work and the me at home. Leading a double life is exhausting. It's also incredibly damaging in our environments. Just think, if I know that you're two different people at work and at home, how likely am I to trust you when push comes to shove? We each have something special and unique about us. We each have perspectives and knowledge that shapes our thinking. Holding that back and not sharing it with the world, it's closing yourself off from true connection. I'm reminded of the Dr. Seuss quote, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out?" Just like I was coasting in my career before, I also wasn't being the real me. I was the one who was holding myself back. But I'm not the only one. We all have ways that we try to keep ourselves small. Little worries that pop up like we just talked about, and they seem huge and unsurmountable, but we're able to do it. They each say different things. That little voice in our head that says, don't make waves and don't bother sharing the idea. What if my idea sucks? What will others think of me then? That voice knows that it gets space to talk because it preys on our fear and insecurity. is what it does. This is where we get in our own way. We are our single greatest barrier to being ourselves and building real connection and developing that love and finding acceptance. It's a selfish act, albeit a noble one. You are depriving the world from benefiting from your unique gifts when you do this. So how do we change this? Like I tell my kids and how I often joke around with my teams, but I'm actually being serious. Sharing is caring. Let's think of an example together. Take a few seconds and think about it. What if instead of stopping yourself, you share your crazy idea? What can happen then? Feel free to respond to me in the chat with that. The worst idea is the one untold. Yeah, that's really true. The seemingly impossible becomes possible. Absolutely. Wired, yes, yes. You share the crazy idea. So people might laugh, they might. So I want to tell you that when I think of it this way, I frame the perspective. So I put it in two categories. You can have a crazy idea and we laugh about it together. And then we continue brainstorming. Or it's a really good idea and we continue building on it. Which one helps to create connection? Both. You're right, Angel. They both do. You need to do you. Embrace your authenticity. So what happens when we take that other path and we find purpose and meaning in our lives? I made a choice when I became a leader. I could replicate the management style, or I could learn and I could lean into that image that Simon had painted for me in that video. Leadership is always about the people. It was a conscious decision. I was going to lean into that deep feeling inside of me. I wasn't going to let it hide away anymore. I wanted to be present for my team, to support and coach, to let each of them shine. I was going to create an environment where people would feel it's okay to make mistakes. I wanted to build connection and innovation. I was going to embrace courageous feedback. I wasn't showing up to simply smile and tell them everything was going to be okay. I never connected to that myself, so I was determined to do things differently. The Melissa they saw at work was the same Melissa my kids see at home. When you embark on the path to discover your purpose, you're not driving the scenic route, though. It's hard and it's messy. We sometimes have to deal with unresolved pieces of our past, but you have to embrace it all. I did things differently, right or wrong. I owned those decisions. I lived the consequences, and I celebrated the joys. I actually have learned today. I'm at a place now where I can appreciate everything I went through. It's not to say that I wish I couldn't have learned it a different way, but it brought me to who I am now. And I can't deny that I'm in the right place now. You can do this because when you do the work and you touch on your purpose, you find joy. It gave me the courage to keep going forward. As Bernie likes to say, you can't have joy when you're numbing the hard emotions and hiding from them. You can't. So how do we get out of our own way? How can you live who you are and truly connect with others? Live your own dreams. It's a choice. As simple and as difficult as that. It's possible. And as huge and as difficult as it might seem, it is possible. Think of a moment when you have been yourself truly. Think of it. Take a few seconds and tell me, how did you feel in that moment? Free. Felt like home. Empowered. Free. Productive. Energized. Yeah, you guys are right. Imagine if you could live like that every day. Just imagine it. Scary and exhilarating, isn't it? It's a choice you have to keep making over and over again. Not a one and done. In many situations, you'll be faced with an option. Do I gloss over who I really am? Do I stay silent? Do I dare speaking my idea? And each time you choose you, it becomes a little easier. That's courage. People tell me that I inspire them, and I couldn't understand why for a long time. And so I kept the idea far away in the distance. I was aware that it was present, but I kind of kept it away. I was afraid of it. Why would me sharing my fears or opening up on my experiences and being vulnerable inspire anyone? When I started doing this talk for Wired, I realized it. When I've been at my worst, when I've spoken of my deepest and darkest fears or my worries about the crazy idea that just popped in my head, I'm showing the other person that I'm with that it's okay for them to do the same with me. It inspires them because they feel like they can do it too, in their own ways. They can build their own courage when they see examples around them of others who are willing to do the same. We feel less alone. Connection. When I did the Live Your Why class, I wrote down that in 5 years, I would love to start speaking at events. 6 months later, I'm here in front of you all. Life had other plans. I stepped into an opportunity that couldn't be more right, to connect, inspire, and share my journey with you. I see it as a way of giving back, of creating a dialogue for more people to feel like they can connect to themselves as well, to see possibilities. I find it sometimes ironic that the way for me to embrace who I am is for me to share with others. That fear, pushing through it. But finding my voice has done that. I make it my goal to always show up authentically, and I consider myself lucky to be able to do it. I've carved my path intentionally to my why. I've built my life around it now, harnessing my skills and knowledge to help transform businesses, help leaders guide their teams through the path of possibility. Funny enough, a far cry from the girl who had been terrified of people not so long ago. My work now involves meeting people I don't know, sharing crazy ideas, and helping them create courageous environments that lay foundations of growth and innovation. I've embraced myself, all the pieces, the good and the could be better. It's not always easy, and I screw up all the time. I mean, just this week and last week, there's moments that I keep trying to go back, but I push myself forward. Because sometimes I catch myself doing it, and sometimes those around me catch it too. And when it happens, I pause, I breathe, and I remind myself that mistakes happen, that I'm perfectly imperfect, just like everyone else. I carry on. I don't let it stop me from being me the next time around. I keep choosing me, being me. I flip my mindset back to possible. I take the fear and I bring it towards courage by understanding that the act in itself is courage. You can too. I believe in the world that Simon paints, where we can all be ourselves, where we have environments of connection and engagement, where we feel like we belong. It's how my just cause aligns. I use my why to achieve that, to connect people to possibility so that we build a more courageous world and lay the foundations of growth and innovation. You've got a moment here at WYRED to decide if you want to make a before and an after. Choose courage to be yourself. Let go of those ideas that we need to be someone else to be accepted. Find your why, find your spark, your purpose. Share your voice. You'll inspire others to be themselves. When you show up and choose courage and authenticity, you will open the possibility for others to do the same. You can light that spark in them, a before and an after. And I know it can be scary, but I can tell you that it's so worth it. You've got this, really.
Melissa, thank you so much. That was so deeply moving. So many comments coming in on Zoom and on YouTube about how your story is just resonating with people. So relatable. You're inspiring hope in a lot of other people's journeys. Thank you for your vulnerability today.
Thank you guys for giving me the space to share it.
Would anyone like to come off mute and ask Melissa any questions? We did have one question in the chat from a while back from Karika, wondering if in fighting your way back to yourself, have you ever heard of the Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor story?
No.
Karika, if you want to come off mute and expound on that, feel free.
Hi, I'm Melissa. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, no, I was just listening to your story, and it's quite a different story, but it just sprang into my mind because she did a TED Talk, and it just made me think about she was, well, I'll be really brief, but she was a neuroscientist, and she suffered a severe brain aneurysm, and she actually her left side of her brain just stopped working, and she actually had to come back from that. And she did a talk like just a couple months after she recovered, and she had to reteach herself just how to speak. And
Wow.
I just was so inspired by that, and that I don't know, that just popped into my brain, that the literally fighting to come back to yourself. And doing this, I guess, was part of that. I don't know how recent the problem with your job and your taking that vacation, I don't know how recent that was, but it just Dr. Taylor is one of my inspirations, and it just reminded me of that.
I'm gonna look it up. Thank you for sharing it. I'm so excited to go and see it. I love TED Talks, as you can tell. So I'm absolutely gonna look it up. Thank you.
Check it out.
We have a question coming in from Connie. What gave you the strength?
The strength. Well, it was imagining that other option. So when I live in possibilities, like I weigh the options. One of my strengths is strategic, and that helps me like chart paths and check out what the different options are always going to be to situations. The options that I was giving myself, that I saw in just letting things go on or not doing anything and just staying, they were too scary. Not going that other way, choosing this path that seemed scary was actually safer in my mind than choosing to go back or not do anything. I had that push to act. I had a choice. I had to make a choice. And that's where the strength came from.
We have a question from Angel Marie. How do you inspire courage in your children?
They teach me courage all the time, actually. They show up as themselves. They'll tell me sometimes, and I'll be like, oh, maybe we should do this. And they're like, no, that's just how I am, mommy. And I'm gonna be me. I'm like, kids got it right. They know what they're doing. Sometimes I'm a little frustrated as the mom trying to guide them, but I be myself with them, and I teach them. I shared what happened with them, and they know that it's gonna be hard, and not every situation is gonna be easy. And so I be honest with them, adapted to their age, obviously, but that's it, through example. That's the only way I've thought that I can do it.
Question from Angel Love. Is there such a thing as too much authenticity?
Okay. That's a good question. So, authenticity doesn't mean for me saying everything that comes into my head. Authenticity just means being myself, and not hiding that. So, I'm not sure that I can be too authentic in myself. Um, you gotta feel safe, obviously, to be yourself. I create those like circles of safety around myself, and I don't necessarily open up to um, to everyone. It's like I'm not going to just meet you for the first time and you're going to get the whole.
Mhm.
Like I have to feel that kind of connection, that I can be in a safe place where I can open up a bit more and like be more honest. But at the same time, um, I also go into every relationship, or not, like in every connection that I'm making with a person, is going in with the premise of they're showing up with their best selves, and they're showing up to with the best intentions. And so I bring a minimum amount of trust into that mindset so that I can be me. And then as it evolves, I'll be more and more myself. I don't just open up everything on the first day. Like
Mhm.
it has to establish and grow over time.
That makes sense. I was wondering about that myself. Question from Karika. What makes you want call centers to be the center of an organization? And what helped you most to transition to become a leader?
Okay, so I have grown up in call centers. My career has been in them my entire career, actually. I started out on the phones, and then I grew and I evolved through the different roles that exist in the call center. And for me, when I was on the phone, or when I was in the support teams, or when I was a leader in them, then what always spoke to me was the connections that people are making all day long, those relationships that you're building, that you're developing over the phone. And over the phone, I find was really hard, because I mean, in the video, you can see my facial expression and you can know where you have a better idea of what my intention is. Through the phone, I have to convey that all through my voice. And when I can hang up a call, or when one of my employees would hang up a call and say, I think I made a difference, I had an impact, and you've built that connection and that relationship that was there, it's beautiful. And that's how you are engaged in what you're doing, because you feel that you're making a difference. And so to create for me those environments where the call center is the heart of the organization, it's because that's where you're creating those connections that go long after, like the impacts of those connections, they translate into everything afterwards. As the employee, I feel like I made a difference. As the leader, I feel proud because I know that my employee is excited and happy about it. As the client, I hang up and I'm feeling positive too, because if I've really had that connection, I hang up and I'm smiling, and I'm going to go into the next situation in my day smiling because of it. So it can have that ripple effect. And that's why I do that. And the transitioning to become a leader, it was in the call centers as well. What helped me is surrounding myself with wise people around me, and never accepting that I was done, never accepting that it was finished. My growth, I mean, it's putting myself in situations that were going to challenge me, challenging my thinking, surrounding myself with people who are better than me, who are going to question me and call me out in respect, and in a way that was going to help me grow. That's what helped me the most.
Mm, so good. Thank you again, Melissa, for sharing your heart and your journey with us today. If anyone would like to connect with Melissa, learn more about her work, please visit wired.live and look at her speaker bio. All of her connection information is there. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back at the top of the hour with Julia, who is one of our international members, who is going to share with us how to live our true colors. So we're going to close the room at this time to reset for the next speaker and see you in a few.